Hello, good morning, and welcome again to the Wild Wisdom Wellbeing guest slot. And today I'm so excited. I've got Tracey Carter of Succeed in Life, whose link I have shared before, but I'll also try and remember and stick it in the comments below in case you'd like to follow up with Tracey after this conversation. And Tracey does a lot of various different things. She is a life coach, a business coach, hypnotherapy practitioner. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Tracey. If you would just like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey and what brought you to the work that you do.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Really pleased to be here. So, yeah, I guess my journey has been around, I've worked in corporates. I've been a director for the last 25 years, and I was a managing director where I set up a whole new business, kind of value about 40 million, 500 staff. So I've always worked in that kind of environment, and I loved it, you know. For me, it was always about managing services for the community and for the local authority, and serving the people that I worked, that worked in my teams, kind of, and I worked with. Then I left there in 2018, and I think one of the things that's really important to kind of realize about ourselves is I'd achieved great success, but when I left there, I had no sense of purpose anymore. And I'd kind of lost some of my identity because I'd done that for 30 odd years. So there was an element where I think I went through some emotional kind of issues about what do I do next. And there's one quote I'd like to share with people, because this for me was one of the things that really made me stop and think about what I was doing with my life at that stage. Was I think it's Wayne Dyer who said, "Don't die with your music still in you." And that really resonated with me, because I kind of thought, what am I going to do next? I didn't want to carry on in corporate, because I've done that. I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve. So I kind of decided that I would use the skills that I built up and my passion around being in service and serving others to set up my own kind of coaching, mentoring, training business, whereby I would describe myself as a leadership coach, but I've also been training in positive intelligence, which is all around the mindset, because I think we can achieve so much if we have the right mindset, the right heart set, and we think about what it is we're trying to achieve. So I've done a lot of work around that. So I help people to build up their mental fitness, build up their mental muscle, so as they don't allow the negative emotions and the kind of saboteur, that inner critic that we have in our head, that kind of tells us we can't do it, or we're not good enough, or we're an imposter. And believe you me, I think we've all had those thoughts, those thinkings. And actually, by building and kind of doing daily exercises on your mental muscle, you can actually stop that and go to a place of positivity and creativity and curiousness and kind of exploration that helps you to kind of really build up your confidence, your self-belief, and actually decide what it is you want to do and then go after that. So that, in a kind of nutshell, is what I do, and kind of how I like to help others to kind of achieve their successes in life, because I've done mine. So mine now is about how I can serve others to gain that right mindset, that confidence, and be the leader in their own life.
And I love that quote from, you may be right, Wayne Dyer. Sounds like one of his. And I've heard other similar ones. Don't get to the end of your life and find that you have never even lived.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm passionate about those as well. And quite often we will be kind of trundling along just day to day and maybe thinking one day, but that one day doesn't come. The only moment we have is now. So it's about taking those steps to get to where we want to be, but starting now. And they don't have to be big steps, do they? It's the little things that we do consistently.
Absolutely.
But you talked about purpose, and I've seen this in maybe people who retire or who are made redundant or decide that they don't want to do what they're doing now anymore. They want to change, and then they just feel lost, because so often our purpose is just so bound up with what we do. We forget that we are beings, that our sense of self, it can be, and really is, if we just tune into it, so much more than what we do. So if we want to make changes, to connect in, if we're going to retire or we're going to move or whatever it is, because when you say that people get lost, I think it's actually a bereavement.
Yeah.
We've lost what our life was. Or maybe if we've been made redundant, we've lost what our vision of our life was. You know, I think I'm going to carry on in this role for some time to come.
Yeah.
And maybe get promotion or you know, achieve a certain standard, certain level in this business, this work, and then all of a sudden that's feels like it's been taken away. So it is a bereavement process. It's a loss process.
Yeah.
So it can be fantastic because it can be that opportunity, like you say, to be open, to be curious, to explore. I love those words. I use them quite often. That sense of this is an adventure. So let's live the adventure of being. And to me, that purpose, our purpose really is just to be more who we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to bring that into whatever we do.
Yeah. The one thing that for me is interesting, because when I kind of, you know, I come from a working class background, so I never ever dreamed I would achieve and become a director, managing director. But I've always had a kind of passion and a self-belief that I can achieve these things. So that drove me. When I left corporate world, I think you're right. I lost my sense of purpose, and I think I felt quite broken.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, and this is always difficult, because when you present yourself as a confident person, you never want to say, I felt broken. I then stood back into the shadows because I started to hide, because I didn't want to face certain things. But actually, once you recognize that, then you can do something about it. And so for me, setting up my own business, yeah, I've run a £40 million company, can't be difficult. So I decided to be an entrepreneur and set up my own business. And wow, what a shock that was, because it is so different. And I had marketing teams, I had sales teams, I had lots of staff that did lots of different things, and they were experts in it. And I just had to give them the space to be able to kind of do what they did best. Now I have to do all of those things. And there's some things I'm really good at, and there's some things I am awful at. But actually, it's great. It's a challenge, because in doing my business, I realized I had to do a lot of self-development and a lot of reflection, and actually realizing that I'd achieved what I'd achieved as a managing director, but actually I believe my greatest achievements are still ahead of me. They're not behind me, they're ahead of me. And so it's about that purposefulness, and kind of, what is it I want my voice to stand for? And that's a really important thing for me, because we all have a voice. We all have the right to achieve our own successes and have a happy, successful life. And I think it's that happiness and goodness that I think we don't always get right, because I always had the right mindset, but I'm not 100% sure I had it aligned with my heart set. And so I've had to do a lot of work around that whole thing around, how do I make sure that, yes, I'm positive. I mean, when you're in a corporate world, sometimes you have to fight a lot to kind of, you know, be heard, to kind of achieve the things you want to do. So I was very good at being a fighter, but I think that comes from quite a negative place sometimes, because it's your saboteurs that are kind of pushing you forward. When I left corporate, I had nobody else to fight, so I didn't know what to do, because you're not in that world anymore. So actually understanding that we've got really good places in our mind that we can use to push our businesses forward, to push ourselves forward, to be happy in ourselves, I think is really important. And I think the fact that we have a judge in our head that judges ourselves and judges others, again, it's all about recognition. Once you recognize something, then you can do something about it. And so I spend a lot of time, and it's not easy, because I can be very judgmental, and that's something I learnt. And now I try not to do the judgment of others or the judgment of myself, because it doesn't take you anywhere. And you know, and what scares me the most these days is when you go on to some of the different social media, everybody's judging everybody else with loads of different viewpoints, and it can be quite toxic. And so I choose not to get involved in any of that. I choose to kind of look at how can I continue to do what I want to do, but with a positive mindset. And so having the empathy for others, having the empathy for myself, having loving myself and believing in myself. And when I say myself, I mean this to everybody, because we are human beings that have a gift in us, and we've just got to get that gift out and live that satisfying, fulfilled life.
Absolutely. And I haven't heard that term before, obviously. I've heard the kind of concept, but heart set, mindset and heart set. I love that idea. And the fact that when we can bring these two into alignment, we have that sense of congruence where everything starts to flow in the same direction, and it's not one pulling one way and one pulling another way. And then we feel that sense of being lost and sense of, I just don't know what I should be doing. But when we can bring the two into alignment, bring our thoughts and our feelings and our actions and our words and everything into alignment, we start holding that vibration, and it just starts to attract the things that we need to get to where we want to be, our vision.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Robin, because I think there's another one that comes into that. And I think because I've been, I've worked a very busy life. I would work 10, 12-hour days. So the one thing I always sacrificed was my health. Never went to the gym, so always been overweight. And so by getting my kind of mindset and my heart set into the right place, I'm now dealing with my health set. So I've lost a couple of stone. I've got severe arthritis in both of my knees, and I've just had an operation. And actually the liberation that comes from that, being able to, I'm only 3 weeks in, so I'm still in recovery, but I can get about on my crutches. I can kind of, feel that one of my knees has got no pain in it in the same way. It's stiff still, but it's not got the same pain. And actually, you've got to have that, because if you really want to live a fulfilled life, you've got to get the mindset, the heart set, and the health set right, and these are things I've learned just because of my experiences, and my experiences are no different than anybody else's. So it is just about all of us kind of thinking about, what is it we really want to achieve? What is it the life we want to live? How do we want to be remembered? And how do we want to kind of help support our family and our friends? And actually, the journey then is such a fulfilling journey to go through.
Absolutely. And I love the concept of balance, or balancing, because I don't think it's something we achieve. It's a practice. Because things are always changing. So it's constantly just shifting and adjusting for those changes. And also as we grow and change and life shifts. But that idea of, we need to have the yin and the yang. We need to have the active, but we also need to go within and listen. What is my body saying? What is my heart saying? So what is, where is it leading me? Is my body saying, actually, I need different nutrition? I was watching a fantastic video this morning from Marianne Williamson, interviewing Matthew Albrecht, who's just written a book, Nourish. It's something about nourishing your life, or nourish your body. But it's all about how he's got 4 pillars of healthy eating. And it's not about going, to the extremes of healthy eating and cutting out everything, but it's cutting out the really, really processed foods that actually just make us sick. But unfortunately, through lockdown, a lot of us have put on weight because partly we're comfort eating. We were thinking it's so much easier just to eat that food that's already ready and just stick it in the microwave or add hot water or whatever. It's not that I have to cook. So all of these things go together to keep us feeling much healthier, giving us much more energy, helping us as well in mood, because serotonin, mood hormone, comes from the gut. So if I feed healthy gut, then I'm going to feel so much better. So all of these things to bear in mind when we're looking after ourselves and our mindset, heart set, and gut set, and health set, because when our gut set isn't healthy, then our mindset really, really struggles. And it's difficult as well for us to tune in, because we feel depleted, because we don't have the nutrients and stuff that we really need to be on top form. So I love how just nature brings all of these things together, shows us in so many ways that all of these things are interconnected and interdependent.
It's creating new habits, isn't it? Because I think You know, we all do things because we've always done it that way.
Mm.
And if you start thinking differently and believe in that, and then you start taking those actions, and you keep doing them constantly, even if you, you know, when I'm dieting, I often have a kind of break where I kind of might have a weekend where I've gone and ate the kind of almond croissant that I shouldn't have ate, you know, and thoroughly enjoyed it. But that's fine, so long as then on the Monday I'm back into it, and that becomes more of a habit. And I think once we get things that are good for us into a habit, then it's easier to do because you just do it very naturally then.
And because you start to feel the change, you start to feel better.
Yeah.
And also, I think, you know, you just touched on there having that croissant. And partly it is nice to think it's a naughty little treat. But at the same time, I think we shouldn't worry too much, shouldn't. I'm going to say what I'm going to, you know, illustrate what I'm saying. That if we say I shouldn't, then it starts that negative thoughts and feelings.
Yes.
That pattern already. Whereas if I say I am allowed a treat, just every now and then, so long as I balance it out. If I have a day when I have a croissant or I have a little treat, that's absolutely fine. Don't beat myself up about it. Don't think I've fallen off the wagon and it means I, you know, don't bother doing it again. It's that consistency, and just go, okay, tomorrow I'll have a veggie day, or tomorrow I'll, you know, I'll go and exercise, or I'll do something different, but I will bring back the balance. To me, it's just about making sure that I've got that.
That's a really good reminder, Robin, because I think we don't recognise the power of the words we use and the impact it has on us. And, you know, I still slip into this kind of, you know, oh, I've cheated, you know, and actually you're absolutely right. It's about, it's okay to do all of these things. I can. And, you know, that movement from I can't to I can is life changing, you know, and it can make such a difference. So I think we all need to think about the words that we use, and we talk, especially in our kind of, you know, our conversations that we have within our kind of minds and stuff, because the power of that positive words and stuff kind of creates that kind of positive life.
I'm sure you're very, very conscious of that around your hypnotherapy work and around coaching. Yes. And building that positive intelligence and positive mindset.
Yeah, I mean, it's around, you know, when I think about the kind of the leadership thing that I talk about, because, you know, for me, I'm on a bit of a quest, because I've stuck with the leadership coaching that I want to do, and I want to kind of bring that to many people in a much more affordable way, because I think the trouble with coaching is it's seen as it's for all the CEOs and the kind of, you know, the leaders and the kind of higher managers, and it shouldn't be. It should be for everybody, because every single one of us are leaders in our own life. And actually, when we're in our job, if we think like a leader, and so long as the organization culture doesn't kind of, you know, knock that out of you, then actually you can serve somebody really well, and you can feel good about what you've done, and actually the fulfillment that comes from that. So I want to see organizations really think about leadership, because I've seen so many poor leaders. And when I say poor leaders, I judge that by the detrimental impact sometimes they have on other people, because lots of staff that go to work don't have a voice in the organisation, because they're kind of at the lower end of the organisation, and they get told what to do, they get told how to think, and they even get told that their kind of their voice and their stuff isn't of any value, and that is so detrimental to kind of individuals, because we should be letting everybody reach their full potential, and we should be encouraging them to kind of see that, know what that is, and develop that, because everybody has that in them. And so I'd like to see managers, leaders and individuals actually really thinking about leadership and how they can make their own personal leadership make a difference to their customer, to their colleagues, and to the people that they serve. And, you know, when I was a managing director, I always seen it that my job was to serve my people. You know, didn't always get it right, and there's lots of things you look back and you think, I wish I had done more of that and less of that. but I think it was always with the good intent of making sure that people had a voice and they felt respected for the jobs they did.
And I think it serves not only the individual, but the organization, because when the individual shines in whatever role that might be, and when they're doing it because they have a love of what they're doing and they can see the purpose, how it fits into the whole of the organization, whether they're a cleaner, whether they are the CEO, whatever level they're at, then everything does come together.
Yeah.
And it's more than the sum of its parts then, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a book by Jim Collins called Good to Great. And for me, that was kind of a business book that I used as my mantra throughout, because it talked about how those businesses that were successful actually went from being good to being great. And it was all about the humbleness of the kind of the leader, and how they would, one of the things they talk about is how they would look out the window when they were giving praise to all the staff, but they would look in the mirror when they were taking responsibility for something that didn't go well. So it's about that kind of not blaming others, but they focused on building the organization for greater success and succession planning, and making sure the next leader was going to be better than them. It wasn't about them. They had a stoic resolve to make sure they did whatever needed to be done to make the business successful, but they did it in a way that was about getting the right people, putting them in the right places and letting them drive the business where it needed to go, and having that kind of resolve to do the right things.
And that's wonderful. The idea that you lead with the thought of your legacy, and with the thought of, I want the very best for the people who work here, the very best for the people who will work here, plus the very best for customers, if they're that kind of a business. But I suppose any business has customers of some sort, don't they? That's wonderful.
I think you've got to have that. I think you've got to be able to. You've first of all got to be able to listen. In any walk of life, whether it's as a leader or just as a colleague to colleague, you've got to be able to listen to what's really being said. Be able to empathise with them, being able to not judge, and being able to kind of help people to kind of. There's an element of also being honest with people, because sometimes we don't say things that we see, but doing it from a good place. Because I always kind of would say, if I'm doing something that's not good, tell me, because I might not like hearing it, because none of us want to be criticised. But actually, how can I change something if I don't hear it from somebody else's perspective?
Yes, because we don't always see, and certainly we don't see from the outside or receive what we're saying as somebody else would. So it's hard for us, even if we try our best. It isn't necessarily possible to see everything that we kind of need or want to see if we're going to be the best that we can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all have blocks in that, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And it's a constant journey we're on, isn't it? I don't think you ever. You never reach the point where you can say, I'm good enough now, I've done everything, because we're always learning something new, and we're always on that journey, but what a journey to go on, where you're always learning and developing.
And I think, that to me is just the most exciting part, really, that it is an adventure. We are always growing, we are always learning. And I think we're always good enough in that, where if we are really just listening and doing our best, we're always good enough. We are always good. We are always really trying the best. We are trying our best with the resources that we've got available to us, the ones that we can access. We are always doing that. And sometimes they're maybe not the best resources. They're not, our beliefs maybe aren't serving us. So if those are the resources that we're accessing, we may not be at our fullest potential. But if we are continuing to look for getting the best beliefs, the ones that serve us best, the right mindset, the right heart set, the right everything set, I think we are doing what we need to do. But we are always growing. And I love that there's never a ceiling that says, right, you stop now.
No, but you know what? One of the lessons I remember learning quite a few years ago now, and my daughter was, I think she was about 13, 14. And I'd always been, I've always been quite matter of fact, kind of bad things happen, you get on with it and you move on. So I'd kind of installed that in her. And so it was kind of like, yeah, if you're feeling like that, don't worry, just put a positive mindset on it and kind of move on. And she said to me, she said, Mum, can you stop trying to fix my problems? And would you just stop and listen to what I have to say? And when you get your 14-year-old daughter telling you that, and she's absolutely right and you're wrong, you then realize that kind of, and as parents, kind of we don't necessarily bring our children up kind of knowing all the things. We do it the way we think needs to be done. And actually sometimes we can do more harm to them than good, and so there's, I wish I had have had some of the insight when I started off as a parent that I've got now, but you learn and you can put things right, and so my daughter has been quite an insightful girl for me, in terms of kind of teaching me lots of lessons along the road.
But I think she was able to because you were doing something right. And also because you were open. So she was able to say it to you and you were able to hear it.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things for me that we need to learn, as there's the openness, there's the curiosity, the exploration that we've already talked about, but self-compassion and self-forgiveness. To me, they are huge. Because I think, as you were saying earlier, we've got this inner critic and it beats us up something rotten. I was hearing a fantastic exercise the other day of a workshop that was held, and people were divided into pairs and told to write down the things that their inner critic says to them. Right. And then to turn to the person next to them and read them out. Say them to the other person. It's like, because we wouldn't say the things our inner critic says to us. We wouldn't say them to our worst enemy.
No.
For me, my biggest step was to learn that self-compassion. And, when you get to that point of, I should not have done that way, or, I made that mistake. It's okay. I made it. I can change. I will listen and I will recognize, what my daughter said to me, that, oh gosh, yes, she's right. If I'm just trying to be positive all the time and not acknowledging that there is pain there, or there's hurt, or there's a need for something, or if I'm not listening to somebody else, what they're really telling me, then I'm missing something. Okay. Okay. I need to, I'll address this. I'll make a change. Because that's another thing. We never stop in that either. We can be open. We can change. There's no right, you're fixed now, as in solid, fixed, can't change.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I was watching, funnily enough, I was watching last night on the TV that Rich House, Poor House, they were doing a reflection back. And it was interesting because there was, the kind of the most wealthiest population and the kind of the lowest population and stuff. And actually there was a lady that had lots and lots of debt and stuff. And she swapped with somebody that had their own business in terms of doing a makeup artist and stuff. But as a result of some of that, because she saw that somebody else was very like her many years ago and made it successfully in the business, and they did help her. So I think there's always that time when you need somebody to help you to kind of realize some of your own kind of potential and stuff. But it was great to see that because they did some mentoring with her and some support with her, she was able to to turn that around and actually set up her own business and become successful and pay off her debt and stuff. So it's just wonderful when you see so many different stories where just by the help of other people, they've helped unlock, because, she's done it, but she's had help by just believing in herself.
And it just goes to illustrate how huge mindset is. And again, like you were saying earlier about, we parent largely from the way we've been parented. And there is that idea that if you've grown up in maybe a working class family or a family that has experienced debt, that is your experience of life. So and I know that I was taught things like, look after the pennies, the pounds will look after themselves. Money doesn't grow on trees. All of these things we have in our money mindset that can really hold us back. Because if we think money doesn't grow on trees and you have to be very careful with every penny you spend, it's a very different mindset from, oh yeah, money's not a problem. Money just flows. Money comes to me. I never have a problem with money. And it's a very different feel within ourselves as well. There's that sense of lack versus that sense of, yeah, it'll be fine. Money will come. And then it sets us up for, right, what do I do? That because I'm freer, so I do more and I believe in myself. I believe that it will happen. And somehow, it does work out that way, versus the one who thinks that I never have enough money, that works out that way. So
yeah,
it's
that law of attraction. Yeah, that law of attraction and stuff. And kind of, you know, if you read a lot of the good books that are out there, you know, they always tell you, especially around gratitude and stuff, you know, and kind of making sure that you, again, this is the positive kind of words that we use to ourselves. But if you believe in something and you tell yourself it enough, then inevitably that is the future you're creating, you know. So if you do it from a positive point and a good place of what you want, and you're prepared to put in place the work and the actions that will help you on that journey, then you can create and shape your future.
Absolutely. And I think as well, if you got the heart set, the mindset and everything in congruence, then when you're putting in the work, it won't feel like work.
Yes.
It'll just
be passionate about it. You want those things. Yeah.
It'll just be exciting. It'll be an adventure. It'll be fun. And that was part of my journey, recognizing that that's possible and I can do it my own way, which means I can make it fun.
Yes.
It's win-win-win.
Yes. And I think that's the great thing now. I just hope that we've gone through a year in COVID, you know, where I don't think you could have seen so many different things coming. Your Black Lives Matters, you know, the kind of the amount of people that have died through the pandemic, you know, the kind of the fact that we're all wearing face masks now, the fact that we're all kind of been in lockdown for 3 months, and the majority of people are complying with all of those rules and stuff, you know. And I just hope we all take some of the learning from some of that and kind of, you know, go forward into the kind of the new world, you know, with the kind of, what do we want this to be for each of us?
Absolutely. And I heard a lot of people, I guess around the middle, when we'd had the initial lockdown and that real stop, everything stopped. All the things that we'd said, oh, we can stop air travel and we can never stop industry and all of these things. And they stopped.
Yeah.
They almost stopped dead. And it was a huge shock for a lot of people. It was like having a roundabout that's spinning and jumping off, and whoa, it really just throws you. Which, okay, was hard initially, but at the same time, it gave us that, it brought us up short, didn't it? It really brought us up close to, this is the change that we can make, and this is the difference that it makes. So there was a lot of people getting into gardening. There was a lot of people maybe who did start cooking from scratch because they had a little bit more time and were maybe just, let's do this for our well-being as well. And the nature that was starting to come out again, there were goats in the north of Wales, and I think it was Llandudno, coming out and eating people's hedges. And there was talk of the dolphins coming back to the canals in Venice.
Yeah.
So the air was cleaning up, the sea was beginning to change. And I think for me, that's one of the real gifts. It's been a hugely challenging time and some terrible things have happened through the last year. But the gift of it is the chance to pause, the chance to stop, the chance to go within, the chance to tune in and listen. What do I want? As you're saying, how do I want to go forward? What do I want my legacy to be going forward? What was really positive from how I was living that I can bring in? But what have I learned from taking a break, from breathing? And then I can bring that in. And then using those two, what can I create from that? What new vision do I want to hold going forward? Because I've heard as well of people saying, I didn't realize how busy I was pre-lockdown. It took that stop to make me think, oh my goodness, and I don't want to go back to that. And there's a lot of talk now about, are kids going to go back to school, or are they going to do blended schooling, or are more parents maybe going to do some homeschooling? Are people going to work from an office again, or are they going to work more from home, or a blended version of that? So I think as well, the fact that technology had to really step it up fast, and we've used Zoom and all of these things, I think that's shown us what is possible. People are working from across the world now, still office based, but their office is even in another country because they're doing it remotely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we now know so much more of what's possible.
Yeah.
How can we use that in a really creative, positive, uplifting way?
Yeah, I've heard so many people that don't want to go back into the office, have kind of really enjoyed the opportunity to work more from home because they can achieve much more. And I think some of the things for me, I've thought much more about some of the experiences more so than, like we would go out on a Saturday shopping and be busy and busy and busy. Whereas now I like to kind of just do things that like yesterday, it was sunny. We sat in the garden, we kind of had coffee in the garden. We had our lunch in the garden. It was just a nice experience, And so, we've got a pleasant little garden. So that was nice to be able to do that. And where are those birds? Are they coming from you, Robin? That's gorgeous.
My husband said the other day, it would be really peaceful and quiet here if it wasn't for the birds. They are so loud. So I have that as background, and it's not dawn chorus. It's like not quite 24 hours, but the whole of the day. And even when it's getting dark, so 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, we're sitting indoors thinking, those birds are still so loud. What's going on? It's absolutely glorious. But I think as well, they are responding to all that's been happening, because I feel there are more birds around and more beautiful song than there was previous years.
Yeah. I must admit, I absolutely did love the way it was with no traffic. We know it's never going to go back to quite that, but there was something about the air quality and everything else from that time.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you also work on supporting people with confidence and overcoming barriers. And do you do that mostly through coaching or hypnotherapy, or do you do a combination of the two?
So I do most of my stuff through coaching and mentoring, and a bit of training. I can use hypnotherapy, if people want that. But I think, it's like we've been talking about. It's the mindset, and it's kind of getting people to shift from that negative, critical self-talk that they have about I'm not good enough, or I can't. I know when I had to first do some stuff on LinkedIn, and write blogs and stuff for LinkedIn, because that's what you do when you're in kind of business. I didn't want to show up, and do that, because I've been quite a private person. So you have to kind of understand what is it that's blocking you. Because we've all got those kind of blocks that just says we're frightened that somebody's going to kind of shun us or say we're stupid, or we don't know what we're talking about, or why do you look like you look? And actually those are kind of thoughts, but they're not necessarily reality. And actually, there's a great saying, what somebody else's opinion of you isn't your business. And I think that's so true, because we shouldn't let other people's view of us judge us, because some people won't like us, and it doesn't matter.
But then, do we like everybody?
No.
I think it's one of those unrealistic expectations that we hold, and consciously, if we were to question ourselves on it, we would know that it's unrealistic, and yet it's something we hold very strongly, and it's also, for me, it's about understanding why. It's about that part of our brain that's still quite primitive, that just thinks if I'm abandoned, that's it, I will really struggle to survive. So to that degree, it may not be life and death in the world that we live in now, because we'll find water, we will find food, because there are shops everywhere. We don't have to go out and be hunter-gatherers. But to consciously acknowledge and honor the fact that that is still part of our makeup. On some level, we do still have those primitive fears. It's like Maslow and his triangle as well. If we don't have that bottom layer, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for us to move up the triangle. So for me, it's acknowledging and not beating ourselves up about, I am worried about what people think of me. That's human.
Yes. And I think sometimes we go through different things. I mean, we go through things and kind of things happen and you make choices about what you do. And sometimes some of those choices can be painful, but actually there's also something that you can turn that into a gift. You can do something about it, because sometimes that helps you with some of your learning, that helps you build some of your confidence sometimes. So it's about seeing everything from the lens of it being a gift, being curious about it. What's the knowledge I've gained from that? How can I now turn that into something better? How can I learn from that to make sure that sort of thing doesn't happen again? So if you look at it through that kind of lens, then there's always a positive. If you look through it from a kind of negative lens, that's what holds you back, because our brains do tell us they want us to be safe. They want us to kind of survive and be safe. But I think we all want more than that. We want to flourish and, find our inspiration, kind of be inspired, and so it's just, think about it as a camera and kind of which lens you're going to look at it through. And if you always put that positive lens on, then you can see it as a gift and opportunity and something you can do to grow from.
Absolutely. And recognizing that that's normal, that we do want to be liked. It's normal that we're going to feel a little bit out there and exposed and vulnerable. And it's normal that we will criticize ourselves, but not to think that's all there is, but to know that, that's a part of who I am. And yes, thank you, Mr. Ego, you're, Mrs. Ego, whatever, you're trying to take care of me. That's all you're trying to do. You're just trying to look after me. But actually, I am more than that. I am so much more than that. So,
but one of the things I would say to people actually with this, because I think vulnerability is a really good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually people tap into your vulnerability, and actually people are there for you when you're at your most vulnerable. And I don't know if you've read any of Brené Brown's stuff, and she's
on YouTube.
Absolutely, so if anybody's watching this, please go and watch Brené Brown's YouTube TED Talk back in, I think it was 2012, where she's a researcher and she talks about facts and kind of, and she actually was quite vulnerable in this talk. And she's now a phenomenally successful businesswoman, but she always talks about the kind of power of vulnerability and everything else. And it's not a bad thing to show your vulnerability.
And they know now, and this is another thing that has been shifting probably prior to, but also through COVID and the pandemic and the lockdown, that people by people, that selling used to work very differently, how people sold and how people responded to that. And now we look at the fast sell or the just, pay all this money and you'll get this system. And it doesn't go down so well. Now what people want is connection. And I think particularly since we haven't had the physical connection, we're still looking for something in that. And so when we can show our vulnerability, that's where people connect in, because they see, oh, you're human. Oh, it's okay. Then it's okay for me as the buyer to go, oh, I don't have to be perfect, because I can see that nobody needs to be perfect.
Yeah. And we're in a world now. I mean, I think there are hundreds and thousands of coaches out there, and so for me, I kind of think, pick the coach that will get you, that you can resonate with and will kind of get you to where you need to be. It doesn't have to be the highest price coach.
No.
I think there's this myth at the moment about value, and I probably don't agree with kind of the majority of this, because I don't think my value doesn't come by me saying I'm worth this much, so therefore, come with me. Actually, my value is about how I can help you, and actually is about how I can tailor my program to suit your budget, because it shouldn't be a barrier to getting the support and help you need. But there are hundreds of coaches out there, and people will pick who they like, as you said, who they can afford. But there's so much choice out there, and in fact, everything's being done on such a national basis now. I mean, I talk to other coaches in America, in Canada, and in Singapore and stuff, and the fact that you can have these collaborations and do this kind of work is phenomenal. So just get the people that's right for you,
Yeah, and that very much so. I've been saying this just recently, not to go with the first person you see necessarily, unless you feel that instant click and it just feels right.
Yeah.
But if that first person, and you're feeling under pressure, I want this now, that
Yeah,
is your only reason for
now
choosing them.
the offer's gone, Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and as well, don't be pushed by those sales techniques that use lack. This is a one-time offer. If you don't do it in the next 5 minutes, it's gone. I'd be a bit wary. But look for the people that you feel they get me, they get my issue, they are offering, like you say, where I want to be. They're going to get me there, and they just feel like, maybe even like I know them, but like I could really get on with them.
Yeah.
And then a lot of coaches as well will offer a free 15-20 minute chat where you can get a proper feel. You get a degree of a feel by seeing somebody on a video or reading something that they've written, but to really spend time, even just that short time with them, ask them the questions you want to ask them. Get those prepared beforehand, because it can be a bit, you can feel a bit kind of in the moment, and you're not sure what to ask. But if you have those questions prepared and you ask them and you get the answers that you like, then consider booking with them. But really trust your gut on that, I'd say.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And there are so many, so you've got such choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't think that one that's going to go in 5 minutes is your only option.
No. So Robin, can I just ask, because so your Wild Wisdom Wellbeing.
Yeah.
So can I just ask you a bit more about what it is you do?
Yeah, sure.
So you do stuff with horses and stuff as well, don't you?
I do. I work with horses, both as just horses are the kind of client. So I do equine massage, I do energy work with horses, but also I bring them into what I do with people, if people would like to try that. Right. So we have 2 horses here, and basically I say to people, if this is for you, then you can spend time in the energy of nature and the bird song here, also in the presence of the horses. So it's not interaction with the horses so much as just spend time in their energy. They are very big, powerful animals, but they hold their power with such grace.
Yeah, love that.
And they also, because of that, trigger things in us, bring things up for us that can be useful to explore, because they might make us feel that we have to stand in our power, but we do it maybe in a less than positive way. So as human beings, we feel we have to be powerful over.
Yeah.
We have to exert our power over, whereas a horse tries to exert its power with. It's very much a negotiator. So I want to go there, but I have to pass you, or I want to eat that food, but you're eating it. They'll come up and they'll ask, and they'll do it mostly through body language, which as human beings, we're not used to reading that, and it can be so subtle that we sometimes miss it. And depending on the horse as well, sometimes their signs are minimal, or, if they've had difficult early lives, they haven't learnt those signals as effectively. But we can learn how to read them, and then we can see, that's how we can negotiate, not necessarily by body language, but by the signals that we give out. And it's like going back to the mindset and the heart set. If my mindset isn't in the best place and my heart set isn't in the best place, or they're conflicting, I am showing that big time without realizing it. I might think I'm covering it over and nobody can see that I'm nervous or that I'm anxious or whatever it might be, but they can. Even if they don't know that they can, on some level, they're still picking up on it. It's like when we go into a room and we can just feel, has there been an argument in this room? Is this a happy room? Yeah. We can sense it.
Yeah.
So basically that's where the kind of horse and energy stuff comes into what I do.
That sounds fantastic.
It's just, for me, it was a massive part of my learning. And I know that a lot of people really benefit from this sort of thing. So that was why we moved to Wales. We got a place that has 8.5 acres that we can share, because just being where they know that the signs of nature, greenery, being around trees is so good for our well-being. Yeah. So that's just why I love to share it.
And that's the point about getting the right coach for you, isn't it? Because your offering is different from a lot of other coaches. And so, if people love that, then that's where they should reach out to you and work with you for the kind of the support that they need.
Yeah, because like you say, each one has their own little kind of twist, own little quirk, own little buzz about what they offer. So it's finding the one that lights up for you. So just before we close this, Tracey, can I ask you, in our current situation at the moment with COVID and with pandemic, we really, I think, need to pay attention to our well-being and our self-care. Do you have any great tips that you could share with us around self-care and looking after our own well-being?
Yeah, so I've started doing and it's a habit that I've learned from other coaches, so I don't want to kind of ever say something that was mine when it's not. So one of the things I've learned from a chap called Robin Sharma, he talks about the 5 a.m. club, and he talks about the kind of the power hour, and I've started doing this now. I was getting up at 5 o'clock every morning and doing this, and since I've had my knee operation, I'm not sleeping that well, so it's slipped to about 6 or 7 o'clock, but I get up by about 7 o'clock every morning, and I start off with 20 minutes of exercise. So I'm just doing like cycling at the moment to get my knee back into shape and kind of weights on the arms. So I do 20 minutes of exercise, then I do 20 minutes of reflection and meditation and gratitude and being grateful for what I've got. And then I do 20 minutes of planning my day and setting my goals and what I want to achieve for that week and that day. So I do that regularly now. So I'm starting to try and create a habit. I'm still in kind of probably about 3 or 4 weeks of doing this. But it's something that actually just gets me in the right frame of mind for the day, because I'm getting my endorphins going, I'm getting my mindset into the right place, and then I'm setting goals of things I want to achieve, and then I can kind of make sure I use my time effectively. And I think the other thing I would just say is that whole gratitude and thought process about looking at who I am and what I'm good at and what I'm grateful for and what I love about myself actually puts me in the right place to be able to tackle any challenges that are thrown at me.
Definitely. I think anything that feeds our sense of who we really are and our value, and it's not being proud, it's not boastful, it's just, I have a place. Yes. It's like, I think of the chakras sometimes. So there's Maslow's triangle, but there's also the chakras. And the very first one is I am, that I have a place in this world, that I have a valued place in this world. And then I have so much more to give, don't I? When I've filled my own cup first. But I love that power hour, because basically you're addressing all the things that we've just talked about, aren't you? Your mindset, your heart set, and your health set.
Yeah. And it just brings it together. And then and if you do it first thing in the morning, you've done it, you're not kind of putting it off. But the other,
when you're fresh, and when it can then have that knock-on effect throughout the day, rather than sticking it in at the end when you're tired and you're just maybe not in the mood by then.
Yeah. And one of the things I've done, because I'm training, I'm getting my certification in being a positive intelligence coach, sort of a mental fitness coach. And if anybody's interested in finding out more about that, please contact me, because it's a 6-week course that you go on, and you get an app. And so on the app, we do 2 minutes every couple of hours where you're thinking about you're intercepting your saboteurs. So as you move away from that negative into the sage, which is the positive thinking and stuff. And there's a great course around the whole learning around mindsets and stuff. So if anybody's interested, I am offering places on this course that's run by a chap called Shazad Kameen, called Positive Intelligence, and I will heavily discount this to anybody that's interested if they contact me on the back of this. But again, if it's not right for you, that's absolutely fine. There's no hard sell for me, but if you're interested, contact me and find out more.
So what's the best way for people to contact you?
So contact me at tracy@succeedinlife.co.uk, or you can contact me on my telephone number, which is 07710 396 902.
So that's the place to get in touch with Tracey, and just mention Wild Wisdom guest slot. Wild Wisdom Wellbeing guest slot if you would like to take advantage of that wonderful offer. Thank you so much, Tracey. That's really generous. So I'd just like to say thank you so much for being such a fantastic guest. It's been a joy and a pleasure talking with you and hearing all about what you do. So that's it for this week. Tune in next week when I'll have another exciting guest joining me here on the guest slot. Bye for now.
Bye.